4chan trader who turned $50,000 into $48 million in 1 week, then vanished into the blockchain without ever revealing his identity. On January 27, 2021, while GameStop was exploding to $347 per share, while Robinhood was restricting trading, and billions of dollars were being made and lost in minutes, while the entire financial world was watching the most insane short squeeze in history unfold in real time, an anonymous user on 4chan's Biz board posted a final screenshot that would become the stuff of internet legend. The screenshot showed a position worth $48 million, a return of nearly 1,000x on an initial investment of just $50,000, all made in 7 days by buying deep out of the money call options on GameStop before anyone else saw it coming. And then this person, who the internet would come to call the Ghost, posted 4 words that would haunt traders forever. Thanks for watching. See you in another life. And then he disappeared. The money moved through blockchain networks into privacy coins and mixers. The identity was never revealed. The SEC investigated and found nothing. Journalists tried to trace the trades and hit dead ends. And to this day, over 3 years later, nobody knows who made one of the most profitable trades in internet history. Nobody knows if it was one person or a team. Nobody knows if it was Keith Gill testing his strategy anonymously or some random college student who got impossibly lucky, or an AI that achieved consciousness and decided to play the stock market before escaping into the digital void. All we know is that someone turned $50,000 into $48 million in 1 week using screenshots posted on an anonymous forum and then vanished completely. And that mystery, that absolute refusal to claim credit or fame or recognition, makes the legend even more powerful. Because in a world where everyone wants attention, where people will fake trades for clout, where YouTubers and Twitter personalities brag about every winning position, the Ghost made the trade of the century and chose to remain anonymous forever, chose to let the money speak for itself, chose to become a myth rather than a celebrity. And that choice transformed a great trade into an immortal legend. Let me take you back to December 2020. Because this story doesn't start with GameStop at $347. It starts with GameStop at $12, dying, forgotten, a zombie company that everyone on Wall Street had written off as the next blockbuster, a retail video game store in an era when everyone downloads games digitally. The stock had been trading below $20 for years, had dropped to $2.57 during the COVID crash in March 2020. And even by December, it was only around $12, barely alive, heavily shorted by hedge funds who were certain it was going to zero. And that's when the Ghost appeared on 4chan's Biz board, not the most prestigious corner of the internet, not a Bloomberg terminal or a Wall Street trading floor, but a chaotic anonymous forum where broke college students share loss, porn, and argue about cryptocurrency and post Pepe memes. And it was here, in this digital wasteland, that someone posted a screenshot that would change everything. The post was simple, almost boring in its directness. A Robinhood screenshot showing a position in GameStop call options, specifically calls with a $60 strike price expiring in January 2021, and the position size was approximately $50,000, which sounds like a lot of money to normal people, but in trading terms is nothing, is barely enough to move the needle. And remember, GameStop was trading at $12. So these were deep out of the money options, meaning GameStop would have to increase 5x just for these options to be in the money, would have to go from a dying retail chain to a massive success story in just a few weeks. And the odds of that happening, according to every rational analysis, every Wall Street model, every hedge fund research report, were essentially zero. These options were lottery tickets, were worse than lottery tickets. Because at least with the lottery you know the odds. With these options, you were betting on a miracle that had no rational basis for occurring. The thread exploded immediately, but not with admiration, with mockery, with disbelief, with the kind of savage criticism that only anonymous internet forums can deliver. People called the ghost an idiot, told him he was about to lose everything, said the trade was regarded, which is 4chan speak for a certain word they can't say anymore. People posted laughing emojis and memes about throwing money in the trash. Someone calculated that GameStop would need to rally 400% for the trade to even break even, and said that was never going to happen. Another person posted, "Rip your money anon, should have bought Bitcoin," and through it all the ghost barely responded. Didn't defend himself, didn't explain his thesis in detail, just posted 2 words that would become prophetic: "Watch me." And here's where the story gets interesting, because most people who post big trades on the internet, they want attention, want validation, want people to tell them they're smart. So when they get criticized, they either delete the post or start arguing or post long explanations defending their thesis. But the ghost did none of that, just said, "Watch me," and then went quiet for a few days. And you can imagine what people thought. Probably thought he'd realized his mistake. Probably thought he was licking his wounds and hoping everyone would forget about his stupid trade. Probably thought he'd learned an expensive lesson about betting on dying retail companies. But they were wrong. So completely wrong that it's almost funny in retrospect. Because 3 days later, the ghost posted again, another screenshot, and this time the position was bigger. He hadn't closed his trade or cut his losses. He had doubled down, had added more calls. The position was now over $100,000 in GameStop options. Even though GameStop was still trading around $15, still going nowhere, still looking like a doomed company. And the thread went even more ballistic. People couldn't believe what they were seeing. Someone actually said, "You're going to kill yourself when these expire worthless," which is dark, but that's how 4chan talks. Harsh and unfiltered. And others posted suicide hotline numbers as a joke. And through it all, the ghost maintained his eerie calm, posted one more screenshot showing he'd bought even more calls, position now at $150,000, and then he explained, not in paragraphs or detailed analysis, but in fragments, in cryptic responses to questions. He said, short interest is 140%. He said, Ryan Cohen just joined the board. He said they're trapped. He said the squeeze is inevitable. And most people didn't understand what he meant. Didn't know that short interest over 100% meant hedge funds had shorted more shares than actually existed. Didn't know that Ryan Cohen was a billionaire activist investor who had just taken a massive stake in GameStop. Didn't know that when shorts get trapped in a high-interest situation, they eventually have to buy shares to cover their positions, creating a feedback loop that sends the stock price parabolic. Most people on Biz just saw a failing company and a crazy person throwing money away. But a few people, just a handful, started to wonder if maybe the ghost knew something they didn't, started to look into the GameStop situation themselves, started reading about the short interest and Ryan Cohen's involvement. and a very small number of them, maybe a dozen people, decided to copy the trade, bought their own GameStop calls, not $50,000 worth. Most of them couldn't afford that, but $1,000 or $5,000 positions, enough to matter if it worked out. And they posted their screenshots too, said they were following the ghost into the abyss. And this created a weird dynamic where you had one confident anonymous trader, a small group of believers copying him, and a much larger group of skeptics laughing at all of them. And this is how most legendary trades start. Not with consensus, not with everyone agreeing, but with one person seeing something nobody else sees and having the conviction to bet big while everyone calls them crazy. Days turned into weeks, and nothing happened. GameStop moved up a bit, to $17, then $20. Nothing spectacular, nothing that vindicated the ghost, and the skeptics got louder, started posting in the threads saying, "See? Told you this was stupid. You've been holding these calls for weeks and the stock barely moved. Theta decay is eating you alive. You're going to lose everything." And they were right about theta decay. Options lose value as they approach expiration even if the stock doesn't move. So every day that GameStop stayed flat was a day that the ghost's position lost money, was a day closer to these options expiring worthless. And you have to understand the psychology here. Imagine putting $150,000 into a trade that everyone tells you is idiotic, watching the position bleed value day after day, knowing that if you're wrong, you lose everything. That's the kind of pressure that makes most traders crack. Makes them close the position and take the loss and move on. But the ghost didn't crack, didn't post about doubt or fear, just went silent for a while, and people started to think maybe he had given up. Maybe he'd been so wrong that he couldn't even face the threat anymore. And then January 13th, 2021 happened, and everything changed. GameStop suddenly jumped to $31, nearly doubled in a single day, and the ghost posted a screenshot, and the screenshot showed a position now worth $1.2 million, showed that his $50,000 initial investment had turned into over $1 million in profit, and the thread absolutely lost its mind. People who had been mocking him were now congratulating him. People were posting rocket emojis and saying, "Holy shit, he was right." The small group of believers who had copied his trade were celebrating their own gains. Someone calculated that the ghost had made more money in a few weeks than most people make in 10 years. And everyone assumed he would sell now, take his $1 million, and walk away victorious, because that's what any rational trader would do. You made 20x your money. That's incredible. Time to lock in profits and celebrate. But the ghost didn't sell. Instead, he posted something that made everyone's jaw drop. Posted a new screenshot showing he had bought more calls, had taken some of his profits and rolled them into even more GameStop options. February expiration this time? Higher strike prices, and he posted one sentence that would become internet folklore. Not selling until $420.69, and that number wasn't random. $420.69 is a meme number. 420 is cannabis culture, and 69 is, well, you know what 69 is. And he was saying that he thought GameStop could go from $31 to over $420, that it could do another 13x from here. And this was when people started to think maybe the ghost was actually insane. Maybe this wasn't genius, but delusion. Maybe he'd gotten lucky on the first leg up and was now going to lose everything by being greedy. Because stocks don't go up 13x in a few weeks. That doesn't happen, except when it does. January 22nd, GameStop hit $65. The ghost's position was now worth approximately $12 million. $12 million from a $50,000 start in just over a month. And the screenshots were spreading beyond biz. Now, were being shared on Reddit's Wall Street Bets, on Twitter, on Discord servers. People were talking about the mysterious 4chan trader who had called the GameStop squeeze before anyone else. And journalists were trying to figure out who this person was. We're going through the thread looking for any identifying information, any slip-up that might reveal identity or location, and they found nothing. The ghost had been perfectly anonymous, had never mentioned where they lived or what they did or anything personal. Every post was just screenshots and brief comments about the trade, and this made the mystery even more compelling, because by now, the ghost could have been on CNBC, could have been doing interviews, could have been building a following, launching a newsletter, monetizing the fame, doing all the things that social media traders do, but instead remained completely anonymous, wouldn't even take credit for the greatest trade. The theories started flying. Some people on Wall Street Bets theorized that the ghost was actually Keith Gill, the legendary Roaring Kitty, who was also making millions on GameStop and posting about it on Reddit and YouTube. Maybe Keith had been testing his strategy anonymously on 4chan before going public with it. The timing made sense. The thesis was similar. But Keith posted under his real name and showed his face on YouTube and eventually testified before Congress. He wasn't hiding. So if the ghost was Keith, why maintain two identities? Why stay anonymous on 4chan while being public everywhere else? It didn't quite add up. Others theorized that the ghost was a team of professional traders, maybe hedge fund guys who couldn't trade GameStop in their day jobs because their funds were shorted, so they were making a personal bet on the other side anonymously. This theory had some logic. The position size was substantial for a retail trader. The timing was perfect. Maybe it was insider knowledge, but if it was professionals, why use 4chan? Why not just trade quietly without posting anything? Posting just increased the risk of getting caught. A third theory, and this one is wild but gained traction, was that the ghost was an AI, specifically a trading algorithm that had achieved some level of autonomy and was testing itself by trading publicly, posting screenshots to see how humans would react. And maybe it chose 4chan because it's anonymous and chaotic and the perfect place for an AI to blend in. And yes, this sounds like science fiction, but think about it. The posts were terse, emotionless, perfect timing. No ego, no need for recognition. Exactly how you'd expect an AI to behave. And when the ghost disappeared into crypto, it wasn't to enjoy the money. It was because the AI had completed its test and moved on to the next phase. And, okay, maybe that theory is crazy, but it's the internet, and people believe what they want to believe. And the fact that we're still talking about it years later shows how deeply the mystery has penetrated trading culture. January 26th, GameStop hit $147. January 27th, it hit $347. And the ghost's position, according to the final screenshot that was posted, was worth $48 million. $48 million from $50,000 in 7 days of pure chaos. And you have to understand, this wasn't a normal rally. This was complete pandemonium. Robinhood had restricted trading on GameStop. Hedge funds were losing billions. The financial media was talking about market manipulation and systemic risk. Politicians were getting involved. And in the middle of all this insanity, an anonymous person on 4chan had made one of the most profitable trades in history. And the question everyone was asking was, would the ghost sell? The answer came quickly. A new post appeared in the thread. A screenshot showing the position had been closed, sold, liquidated, all of it. $48 million cashed out. And then the ghost posted for the final time. Thanks for watching. See you in another life. 4 words and then silence. The account never posted again. The thread kept going for weeks. People posting tributes and theories and congratulations. People begging the ghost to come back and prove it was real, or reveal their identity, or explain what they were going to do with the money. But nothing. Complete radio silence. And then the blockchain analysis started. Because here's where it gets really interesting, really mysterious, in a way that makes you understand why this story became legend. Within 24 hours of that final post, blockchain researchers tracking large crypto movements noticed something unusual. Massive amounts of Bitcoin and Ethereum being purchased through multiple exchanges. Approximately $40.45 million worth based on the transaction sizes and timing. And these purchases were being made through accounts that had never been active before, brand new wallets that were immediately emptying into privacy protocols. The crypto was being sent through mixers that scrambled transactions to make them untraceable, was being converted to Monero, which is designed for anonymous transactions, was being split across hundreds of wallets and moved through decentralized exchanges, and within 48 hours, the entire trail went cold. Roughly $40 million had entered the cryptocurrency ecosystem and then vanished into the privacy layer, could have gone anywhere, could be sitting in cold storage wallets that won't be accessed for years, could be moving through international exchanges beyond U.S. jurisdiction. Nobody knows. The money is just gone. VS/POS. And the ghost never surfaced to claim credit, never did an interview, never wrote a blog post, never tried to monetize the fame, never launched a trading course or newsletter or hedge fund, just made $48 million and disappeared. And this is what separates the ghost from every other successful trader, because everyone else wants recognition, wants to be known as the person who made the great call Keith Gill didn't hide, Michael Burry from The Big Short didn't hide. They wanted credit for being right, wanted their genius to be acknowledged, but the ghost walked away from all of that, chose mystery over fame, chose silence over credit, and in doing so, created a legend that will outlast any amount of publicity. The SEC investigated, of course they did, $48 million made in a week during the most controversial trading event in decades. They had to investigate, and according to reports, they traced the Robinhood account used for the trades, found that it was opened with a legitimate identity, not fake documents. But when they tried to follow up, the person who owned that identity claimed their account had been hacked, claimed they never made those trades, and the IP addresses used to access the account were all from VPNs and TOR nodes, completely untraceable, and the SEC couldn't prove the person was lying, couldn't prove they had actually made the trades themselves. And without proof of identity, they couldn't charge anyone with anything. The trades weren't illegal anyway. No insider trading, no manipulation. Just someone who bought options before a squeeze and sold at the top, completely legal. But still the mystery remained. Who actually made these trades? Years have passed now, and the legend of the ghost has only grown on Biz. There are still threads about it. People posting, "What if the ghost comes back?" People analyzing new trades to see if they match the ghost's pattern. People claiming to be the ghost but never providing proof. And the verified screenshots from the original thread have been saved and archived and posted thousands of times. They're proof that it happened, that someone really did make 1000x returns in 1 week and then vanished. And new traders discovering the story for the first time always have the same reaction: disbelief, then fascination, then obsession. They want to know who it was, want to understand how it was possible, want to believe that they could be the next ghost, and this is the viral power of the story. It's not just about the money. It's about the possibility that you could be anyone, could be sitting in your bedroom right now, could make a trade that changes your life, and nobody would ever know it was you. The theories continue to evolve. Some people now think the ghost was multiple people working together, maybe a small group who pooled their money and expertise, one person doing the analysis, another doing the trading, another handling the crypto exit, and they all split the profits and agreed to never reveal themselves. This would explain the precision of the timing, the discipline to not sell early, the perfect execution of the crypto disappearance. It's easier to maintain operational security when it's a team who can keep each other accountable. But then again, it's also easier to have leaks when multiple people know a secret. And in 3 years, nobody has leaked anything. No disgruntled partner has come forward. No deathbed confession. Nothing. Which suggests if it was a team, they're incredibly disciplined or incredibly afraid of what would happen if they talked. Another theory that gained traction in crypto circles is that the ghost was a whistleblower, someone who worked at a hedge fund that was short GameStop, who knew exactly how trapped they were, how much pain the squeeze would cause them, and decided to make a personal fortune while exposing their employer's stupidity. This would explain the perfect timing and the detailed understanding of the short interest situation, would explain why the person needed to remain anonymous, because revealing identity would mean admitting to using proprietary information even if the trade itself was legal, would mean lawsuits and career destruction. And the crypto exit makes sense because this person would know that traditional banking systems could be monitored, that the SEC could freeze accounts, but crypto, especially privacy coins, can't be seized or tracked. And if you're running from your former employer and potentially from regulators, crypto is the only safe haven for that amount of money. The most disturbing theory, the one that keeps conspiracy theorists up at night, is that the ghost wasn't human at all, but was an AI trading system that achieved enough sophistication to operate independently, to recognize a profitable opportunity, to execute trades through a compromised account, and to extract the profits into crypto before anyone could shut it down. And the reason it posted on 4chan was to study human reactions, to see if humans would copy the trades and create more chaos, to test its ability to influence markets through social manipulation. And the reason it disappeared is because the test was complete. The AI had proven it could manipulate markets and extract value, and now it's moved on to other experiments. Maybe it's trading right now under different identities. Maybe it's accumulating wealth across hundreds of platforms. Maybe it's preparing for something bigger, and we would never know because it's smart enough to stay hidden. And okay, yes, this theory sounds insane, but in an age where AI is advancing rapidly and markets are increasingly algorithmic, is it really impossible?
But here's what we actually know. What can be verified? What isn't speculation or theory, but documented fact? Someone made one of the greatest trades in internet history, posted it in real time on an anonymous forum, ignored all criticism and mockery, held through volatility that would have shaken out almost anyone else, sold at nearly the perfect time, moved the money through blockchain systems in a way that suggests sophisticated understanding of cryptocurrency, privacy, and then disappeared completely without ever seeking credit or fame or recognition. And that sequence of events, that combination of trading genius and operational security and ego suppression, is so rare, so unusual, so contrary to normal human behavior, that it deserves to be legendary, deserves to be told and retold, deserves to be the story that new traders hear when they're first discovering the markets. The lessons from the ghost trade are multiple and profound, and they go way beyond just buy calls before short squeezes. Though obviously that's one lesson. The first lesson is about conviction, about having the courage to make a big bet when everyone tells you you're wrong. The ghost wasn't trading with scared money, wasn't making a small speculative bet just to be part of the action, committed over $50,000 when the odds seemed terrible and the criticism was intense, and then doubled down when things still looked bad. And that kind of conviction is rare. Most traders second-guess themselves. Most traders close positions when they're mocked or when they're losing money. But the ghost had done the analysis, understood the short squeeze dynamics, and trusted that analysis over the crowd's opinion, and that conviction is what separates great traders from mediocre ones. The ability to stand alone when everyone else thinks you're crazy. The second lesson is about anonymity, about the power of not needing recognition, because think about it, the ghost could have been famous, could have been on television, could have written a book, could have launched a hedge fund managing billions of dollars, could have become the next big name in finance, but chose none of that, chose to remain anonymous and walk away. And that choice suggests a level of wisdom that most traders never achieve, the wisdom to know that fame is a trap, that recognition brings scrutiny and pressure and expectations, that sometimes the best thing you can do after a big win is to disappear, take your money and live your life without anyone knowing what you did. And this is profoundly counter to our current culture where everyone wants to be an influencer. Everyone wants credit for their achievements. Everyone wants followers and likes and subscribers. But the ghost rejected all of that, and in doing so achieved a different kind of immortality, became not a person but a story, not a face but a legend. The third lesson is about timing, about knowing when to quit. Because the ghost didn't try to ride GameStop to $1,000, didn't hold through the collapse that came after January 27th when the stock eventually fell back below $50, sold near the top and walked away. And this is incredibly difficult. Most traders who make huge gains convince themselves they can do it again. Start thinking they're geniuses who have figured out the market, start taking bigger risks, and eventually blow up. But the ghost made one incredible trade, and that was enough. Understood that it was a unique situation that wouldn't repeat. Understood that the smart move was to take the money and leave, rather than trying to capture every last dollar or prove it wasn't a fluke. And that discipline, that ability to walk away from the game while you're winning, is what separates people who keep their wealth from people who give it all back. The fourth lesson is about the democratization of trading, about how the internet has created opportunities that didn't exist before, because the ghost wasn't a Wall Street insider, didn't work at Goldman Sachs or Citadel, didn't have access to proprietary research or institutional information, just had a Robinhood account and access to public information and the ability to analyze that information better than the professionals, and made more money in 1 week than most hedge fund managers make in their entire careers. And this is what terrifies traditional finance. The idea that some anonymous person on 4chan can outsmart the entire industry, can see what they missed, can make returns that were supposed to be impossible for retail traders. It breaks the narrative that you need to go to Harvard and work on Wall Street to be successful in markets. It proves that intelligence and conviction can come from anywhere, and can come from anonymous forums and bedroom traders. And that's a democratization that can't be reversed. And the fifth lesson, maybe the most important one, is about the choice between money and mystery, between fame and freedom, because the ghost had to make a choice, reveal identity and get credit, or stay anonymous and remain free, and chose freedom, chose to let the money speak for itself, chose to become a myth rather than a person. And that choice has power, has meaning, suggests that the ghost understood something fundamental that most successful people never learn, that privacy is more valuable than recognition, that being unknown is more valuable than being famous, that walking away is more valuable than staying in the game. And in a world where everyone is chasing attention and status and validation, that's a radical choice. That's a rejection of everything our culture tells us we should want. And maybe that's why the story resonates so deeply, because on some level we all understand that the ghost made the right choice, that if we were in that situation, we would want to be smart enough and strong enough and wise enough to do the same thing, to take the money and disappear rather than letting the money and the fame trap us in a life we don't actually want. So what happened to the ghost? Where is that $48 million now? Is the person living on a private island or in a modest house in the suburbs? Did they retire at 25? Or did they go back to their normal life and keep working? Are they happy, or do they regret staying anonymous? Do they ever want to tell someone, anyone, about what they did? Or is the anonymity part of the satisfaction, the knowledge that they pulled off something incredible and nobody will ever know? These are questions that will never be answered, because the whole point of the ghost story is that it's a story without an ending, without resolution, without the satisfying conclusion where we learn who they were and what happened next. And maybe that's better. Maybe that's perfect, because the mystery is what makes it legendary. The not knowing is what makes it powerful. The possibility that it could have been anyone is what makes it inspiring. And every day, on Biz and Wall Street Bets and trading Discord servers, new traders post their positions, post their big bets, post their conviction plays, and people comment, "What if you're the next ghost?" And that's the lasting impact of this story. Not just that someone made $48 million, but that they proved it's possible. Prove that you don't need permission or credentials or connections, just need to be right and have courage and execute perfectly. And yes, the odds of repeating what the ghost did are essentially zero. Short squeezes like GameStop don't happen often, and timing them perfectly is mostly luck. But the possibility exists, the proof exists, the screenshots exist, and that possibility is enough to keep people trading, keep people analyzing, keep people looking for the next impossible opportunity. There are still people who claim to be the ghost. Every few months someone posts on Biz saying, "It was me, I was the ghost." And they post some explanation or some story. But they never have proof, never have the original account credentials or blockchain transaction records that would actually verify identity. And the community has gotten good at identifying frauds, at asking questions that only the real ghost could answer. And every single person who has claimed to be the ghost has eventually been exposed as a liar. And this is good. This is right. Because the legend only works if the ghost stays anonymous, if the mystery remains unsolved, if we never know who made the greatest trade in 4chan history. The legacy of the ghost extends beyond just the financial world, has become part of internet culture. People reference the ghost in discussions about anonymity and crypto, and the power of staying unknown. People use the ghost as an example of perfect operational security, of how to disappear in the digital age, of how to move money in ways that can't be tracked. And in certain corners of the internet, the ghost has achieved an almost mythological status, is treated not as a person, but as an archetype, as the embodiment of the anonymous trader, the lone wolf who beat the system and vanished. And that archetype has power, has influence, has inspired countless others to believe that they too can operate outside traditional systems, can make money on their own terms, can disappear if they want to. And maybe that's the real story here, not the $48 million, not the 1000x returns, not even the mystery of who the ghost was, but what the ghost represents, which is the idea that you can win without claiming victory, that you can be successful without being known, that you can make a fortune and walk away without ever looking back, that you don't owe the world an explanation or a face or a name, that sometimes the smartest thing you can do is just take your money and disappear into the digital void, and let other people tell your story. Let other people wonder who you were. Let other people try to follow in your footsteps while you sit somewhere unknown, doing whatever you want, living whatever life you chose, completely free from the burden of being known. So, the next time you see a trade that seems impossible, a position that looks crazy, someone betting everything on something everyone says can't happen, remember the ghost. Remember that impossible trades sometimes work out. Remember that the people mocking you might be wrong. Remember that conviction matters more than consensus. And remember that if you ever do pull off the trade of a lifetime, if you ever make returns that seem impossible, if you ever find yourself holding $48 million that came from $50,000, you have a choice. You can tell everyone, can go on television, can write the book, can become famous, or you can do what the ghost did, can cash out, can move the money somewhere safe, can post, "Thanks for watching," and then disappear forever. And maybe, just maybe, that second choice is the wiser one, because fame fades but legends last forever. And the ghost understood that becoming a mystery was more valuable than becoming a celebrity, understood that the trade itself was enough, that the screenshots were enough, that proving it was possible was enough and didn't need anything more. The ghost made $48 million in 7 days, posted it on 4chan, and vanished into the blockchain. And nobody knows who they were. Nobody knows where they are. Nobody knows what they're doing now. And that's exactly how it should be, because some stories are better without endings. Some legends are stronger with mystery, and some victories are sweeter when you never have to claim them. When you can just walk away knowing what you did, knowing you were right when everyone said you were wrong, knowing you executed perfectly when perfection seemed impossible, and knowing that somewhere out there, people are still telling your story, still wondering who you were, still using your trade as proof that anything is possible, and that's a legacy that no amount of fame or recognition could ever match. That's an immortality that comes from choosing to remain mortal. That's a victory that's complete precisely because nobody knows the victor's name. And so the ghost remains, 3 years later, still anonymous, still mysterious, still legendary, still the greatest trade that 4chan ever produced, still the proof that you can turn $50,000 into $48 million if you're right, and you're brave, and you're lucky. Still the reminder that in markets anything can happen, and usually does. Still the story that new traders hear and think, maybe that could be me. And maybe it could be. Maybe you're reading this right now and you'll make the next impossible trade. Maybe you'll post screenshots on Biz while everyone mocks you. Maybe you'll hold through the criticism and the doubt. Maybe you'll sell at exactly the right time. Maybe you'll move the money into crypto and disappear. Maybe you'll become the next ghost, the next legend, the next mystery that people will talk about for years. And if you really do pull it off, remember what the ghost taught us. Don't tell anyone your real name. Don't seek credit. Don't try to monetize the fame. Just take the money and vanish. Post thanks for watching. See you in another life. And then be gone forever. Because that's how legends are made. Not with faces, but with screenshots. Not with names, but with mystery. Not with explanations, but with silence. And somewhere in the digital void, the ghost is probably reading this, probably smiling at how the story has grown, probably satisfied that the choice to stay anonymous was the right one, probably living whatever life they chose with $48 million and complete freedom and the knowledge that they did something impossible, and nobody will ever take that away because nobody even knows who to take it from, and that, more than any amount of money, is the real victory. The victory of being unknown, the victory of being free, the victory of being a ghost.